Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, and I'd like to start by honoring and thanking you for being here, our elder Indigenous brothers and sisters. It's an honor to speak before you. And I'd love to also honor my own ancestors that were very much part of building New York. I come from the Astor family, and I'm the 7th generation grandson of John Jacob Astor, who became the wealthiest man in the world off the back of this city, of building this city, building the New York Library, and did many things. And I think this first question that I've asked myself is, how do we go from our family karma to our planetary dharma? That's the question that's pondered my life purpose. And with it has been the question, how do we transition from this quest to be billionaires to a quest to create billions of heirs? This age of opportunity, this golden moment that we find ourselves in, where we can quite truly transform every aspect of our system. Yet despite this unique moment in history that we find ourselves in, one that arguably has been prophesized for generations, we find ourselves suffering an epidemic of incrementalism, a plague of apathy, being conquered by dystopia. Quite literally, we have a story that is leading to our own destruction. So how do we flip the script? How do we tell a new story that invites us to keep hope alive, that invites us to rise to our own not just individual potential, but our collective potential that goes beyond anything any of us can presently imagine? How do we do that? You know, we've had great thinkers gone before us that have showed us the way that we can do that. Buckminster Fuller's been quoted here by Mark, that he said, you don't change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Do you think we're building new models right now? Is the UN Pact for the Future building a new model? Or is it yet more tweaking of the current system? Taking us, if we need to go to north, and we're presently going south, taking us to south-southwest, but missing the mark. So how do we get to north, is the question. At United Planet, our answer is we start from north. We start from the place we wish to be. We start from the future we wish to create. You know, Einstein said the only distinction between the past, present, and future is time. Sorry, the only distinction between the past, present, and future is a stubbornly persistent illusion. So the question here is, how can we use time, and the time in the quantum sense, to design the future we wish to create? So if we can communicate with the wisdom of our ancestors, surely if we understand quantum time correctly, we can channel the wisdom of our descendants too. We can listen through our own intuitions to the guidance of our descendants, that the communication channels go both ways. So how do we start to think about the planet as an ecocentric civilization quest to upgrade the system and include a much broader horizon of time? You know, our indigenous elder brothers and sisters talk about the 7th generation prophecy, this inclusion of 7 generations gone before us and 7 generations going into the future. What if we could, instead of quarterly capitalism, expand our horizon point to those 180 years in both directions? How would we do that? And so Buckminster Fuller had an idea for this. He called it the world game. He said there was going to come a decade. He called it the design science decade. The decade where every aspect of our world would be gamified in order to work for 100% of all life, in the shortest time frame possible, with the least ecological harm. How would we create Bucky's vision of the world game? That's been an obsession of my recent life. And so we created the United Planet game. And it was based on this premise that started with that JFK speech, where JFK said, by the end of the decade, we're going to put a man on the moon and bring him safely back to Earth. And legend has it, following that speech, James Webb, who ran the NASA Apollo program, threw a party to celebrate landing on the moon in 1961. When Barbara Mux Hubbard told me that story, a penny dropped. I was like, that might be the strategy that can go all the way. What if we could start by celebrating that which we were going to do? What if we could start, instead of the moon shot, with the earth shot, was we created the future, the more beautiful future our hearts know is possible. And we start from that field of collective intelligence. And from that place, we can actually reverse engineer the strategy to get there. Some of you might have seen that film, Ready Player One, where it's one big car race. It's a great metaphor for the planet because we're playing this zero-sum game of the faster car race. We're investing in companies to drive a little bit faster, to get greater profits. And it is the tragedy of the commons that comes at the expense of this faster horse race. We're operating a finite game when we need to play an infinite game. And unfortunately, win-lose games in the age of exponential technology equal lose-lose games, where there's no winners here. So the question is, how do we shift the game dynamics into win-win, win for all, where we win when we all win? How do we program that? And that's what we are prototyping at United Planet. We created the United Planet game, which is an immersive experience where we invite leaders to step into the future that they are working on creating, to role play their future self as Gaians, as citizens of Gaia, as planetary citizens, and tell the story in the present tense of what the world looks like when we're in that place. And we film those stories, and we start with this first piece, which is the narrative is the front line. So if we can create popular stories that transform the design of our system, we can then start to train AI to not just be artificial intelligence, to be augmented intelligence, to include the 3.8 billion years of wisdom and intelligence that Gaia has now at our unique moment of disposal. This unique moment where we need all of the intelligence we can get. We need the intelligence of the whale nation, of the bee nation, of the hummingbird nations, of all species on Earth to start to guide us with a greater awareness that we are actually on a sentient, living, and intelligent planet that we are part of, almost like a planetary immune system. We're like the planetary T cells. So what if we could use our own stories of the horizon point of our imagination to train Gaia AI, a Gaia augmented intelligence, to represent the interests of all generations, all life, not othering, not us and them, left and right, right and wrong, but all life. All life today, more than human life, but also the future, including the interests of our descendants and the descendants of all life on planet Earth. And so with that, what if we could go beyond and start to use that AI to create an entirely new form of financing? What if we could encode money to never be corrupted, to go to exactly where it's having its maximum impact in the world? What if we could take money and use the gravitational power of that money to pull the future into the reality now? What if we could finance from the future backwards the systemic transformations that were necessary for us to go beyond this age of separation, this limited age of the nation state that isn't serving us? And as long as we put all our eggs in the basket of nations, we will continue to separate and other and fail. So the question here is, can we use time as our best friend? Can we program the future into reality now? And our hypothesis here is yes, we can.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you so much. That was wonderful.